for my persuasive argument, and this is on King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And my debate is on why King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is one of the most influential modern rock bands of, modern time, is a way that you could look at it. And up and foremost, one of the reasons that this is the argument is because the amount of diversity and experimental avenues that this band goes down and creates, what they do with their music, how they go through it, and not only that, but the vast amount of art mediums they use to help mold some of their outings. And we'll start off with, what makes this band primarily influential. There are other small little things down the road, but one of the main things that people look at is their discography. And so far, as of April 23rd, 2021, what they are doing is they have 18 albums so far, and between those 18 albums, they actually have a total of 10 different genres that they have covered, and some of them are in volumes. Say, like, there are 3 different volumes of their microtonal kind of Middle Eastern sounding instrument albums. They also have a lot of just alternative rock and roll, but you also get into things like, you know, they have a completely Wild West themed album that has one of them narrating the entirety of it. They have an album that plays on repeat from start to finish, and they made it to where you couldn't tell the difference between where one song ended and one song started, as well as they just dive into so many different just landscapes to where if a person wanted to listen to them, they could choose anything from their catalog and they would more than likely, enjoy it because they are widespread throughout what they create. And with this, they also, in 2017, decided that they were going to release 5 albums in that year alone as a way to sort of challenge themselves, as a way to just push the boundaries of what is expected in modern music, with most bands releasing maybe one album, maybe 2 to 3 years between releases. It's very rare that you see more than that just in a certain timescape. And with this band, they like to push expectations of the music scene. And they managed to do it by the skin of their teeth, because on December 31st, 2017, at 11:58, at so close to midnight, they released their 5th album of the year. And of course, with these 5 albums, they all sounded completely different from each other, and it's just something that just absolute insanity if you think about the amount of work and dedication the band would have to do, because not only were they working on these albums, they were also doing full-fledged world tours in not only Australia, their hometown, or I said their homeland, I should say, but also in North America. You have England. Like, they cover the whole 9 yards, really. And with that, we go over to the band members themselves. And up until late 2020, the band had 7 members, and now they have only 6. And when the band started, there were 2 drummers, there were 3 guitarists, 1 keyboardist slash harmonica player, and 1 bassist. And what they would do throughout the albums is that what I just said isn't set in stone. You can have 2 keyboard players, you can only have 1 guitarist, any of the band members themselves sing. And what makes them interesting as well with an on-stage performance is that the 2 drummers are not both just facing at the audience. Most of the time they are facing at each other, and they are playing 2 completely different parts that intersync with each other, that the band would not be able to create if they only had one drummer. And while they have live sessions now with only one drummer, they have an audio cue already in the background playing along with the single drummer now. And the second drummer quit because he has been running the record studio known as Flightless Records for the entirety of the band's career, and the record studio has signed with many people such as the Murlocs, which is based off another band from the same people in King Gizzard, and they're pretty big in Australia, not really anywhere else, but he decided to leave the band because he wanted to focus on the Flightless Records as a whole and just, you know, go for it at that. And next, one of the reasons why they are the most influential is because they have something that is called the Gizverse, and the Gizverse is just this massive story. And an interview that they did with Music Feeds back in 2017, they stated that before they even released their first album, their first and last album were already decided. They already knew what they were going to do, and they also confirmed that all of the albums that they have put out and will put out will all be connected together in some way. And as I stated at the very beginning of this speech, the art mediums that they use really tie this in together. Not only the lyrics, which dive into a whole subordinate of just massive information if you go down the rabbit hole, but you have more broad cues, such as 4 albums have the same depiction of a high mountain with steps carved into it with a giant castle atop its peak. And as you go through these albums in the order they released, you can not only see on the album covers of the mountain and the castle becoming more in ruin, but you also get to just hear why it happened, like what's going on with this castle, why it's so important, and just everything like that. And not only do they cover, outworldish themes like cyborgs and things like that, but they also cover real world themes in their massive story, talking about, environmentalism, how we are slowly killing ourselves because of the overuse of plastic and, things like that. They do care about the environment and everything that it is because, this is our earth and our home, and they want to get across the message with their fan base that, hey, we are in charge of all of this, and we are slowly going to be the demise of ourselves if we continue to act so selfish. So the Gizverse covers so much, and if you want to go and look up that yourself, there are plenty of videos on YouTube and just sources and interviews about what the band goes over. And with the future that they have planned for themselves, like stated previously, they knew what their first and last album were going to be, but they don't really tell you when their last album will be. They were just going to continue putting out music, and whenever the last album is just when the last album is. And so far, they have already stated that they are going to release 3 albums this year, one of which came out in early February, and it was entitled LW, and it was the third of the trio of the microtonal sounding, themed albums. And just they continue to go through, like just a concert that they performed a couple days ago in Australia. They did a Q&A with anybody that wanted to come and see them, and they said that they're planning on releasing, or they're working on something that sounds completely different from anything they've put out before. So you really just have to look out, because if they haven't covered a genre that you don't listen that you don't like, then there's a huge possibility that a future album of theirs will be a genre that you care for. So in order to be technically a fan of the band, you don't need to like their entire catalog, whereas most bands now stick with one sound, and if you don't like that, then you're kind of out of luck in any chance of getting into the band. But with them, they have such a wide diversity that you can just choose one album out of like the 18 and counting that they have, and you'll more than likely find something that you enjoy. And so, just the whole diversity and scope of this band goes into not only what they put out, but the art forms that they use, with all of their music videos being connected in some way. You have their lyrics all being connected, just tied together through this thing called the Gizverse, and they just are really laid back and are trying to push the boundaries of the music scene, and not only rock and roll, but the entirety of it itself. So, hope this was a good overview on King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and why they are one of the most influential, if not the most influential, modern band in music history. So, hope you enjoyed it.